Welcome back to the Utah Jazz MyLeague, here for episode 7, which is the off-season episode for season 1, heading into season 3. So season 1 has come to an end, and the Jazz have finished the season at 26-56, which is the second worst record in the NBA, only better than the Denver Nuggets, who are, of course, in the same division as our Jazz. Now let's take a look at the points per game, rebounds per game, and assists per game leaders throughout the NBA. The top 5 points per game players were Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis, Damian Lillard, and LeBron James, and fourth and then fifth was Paul George. And then we flip things over to the rebounds per game. It's DeAndre Jordan, Greg Monroe, Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns, and Zach Randolph, while the dimes per game is Damian Lillard, Russell Westbrook, Brandon Jennings, John Wall, and Eric Bledsoe. Now, of course, you're seeing that I'm not going to be showing you who won each award, because I was not aware that if you skip that at the end of your last game when I'm not ready to record, well, you can't ever go back to that screen. So that's a really stupid feature they have. They should have a screen for it, and that's why we do not have it on the screen. But I do remember that Kevin Durant won MVP. DeAndre Jordan won Defensive Player of the Year, I believe it was. I think it was either him or Anthony Davis. I know Gobert finished third. And now let's take a look at the Utah Jazz players' stats. So leading the team with points per game this year was Gordon Hayward at 18 points per game, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. Now those are decent numbers, pretty good numbers, but those numbers came pretty much primarily from the sim games. Whenever I played with Gordon Hayward, he wouldn't do anything. I would get him a wide open shot, he'd miss. He'd drive to the rim, miss a wide open layup. He would never be open. Or it just never went well for him, and even though I would run plays for him, I would give him the ball, I would try a million different ways to play with this guy, and nothing ever worked. Which is why I'm thinking that heading into Season 2, getting around the trade deadline, depending on where we are, I might ship off Gordon Hayward to try to get someone back that we could really use and we could help improve this team. And then we've also got Trey Burke, 14 points per game, 6 assists. Alec Burks is 13 points per game, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Derek Favors, well, since he even got injured early on, he is 11 points per game, 7 rebounds per game. Rodney Hood, 10 points per game, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Trey Lyles taking over for Derek Favors, 10 points per game, 6 rebounds. Basically similar stats to Derek Favors. Rudy Gobert, 7 points per game, 12 rebounds per game, and 2.3 blocks per game. So a very good defensive player, but not very good offensively this season with that only 7 points per game. And now let's take a look at the playoff picture. So out of the West, the teams are 1 and 8 seed is OKC New Orleans, 4 and 5 is Phoenix and Houston, 2 and 7 is 2 is Golden State, 7 is Portland, and then 3 and 6 is LA Clippers and San Antonio Spurs. Then out of the East, we've got 1 and 8 is Miami and Atlanta, 3 and 4 Chicago and Milwaukee, 4 and 1 is Cleveland and Toronto, or no, 2 and 7 is Cleveland and Toronto, 3 and 6 is Detroit and Indiana. So out of the West, you see the playoff picture, and you see we're up to the finals. So in the West, New Orleans beat OKC, the 8th seed. They move on to face the Rockets, who beat the Suns, and then the somehow the Pelicans beat the Rockets 4-2, and they moved on to face the Spurs. And the Spurs got to the Western Conference Finals because they beat the Clippers first round 4-2 to take on the Golden State Warriors, who beat the Trailblazers 4-3. And then the Spurs won that in 7 games, 4-3. So a very good series there. And then we move on to the Western Conference Finals, where the San Antonio Spurs got swept by the 8th seed New Orleans Hornets. So they move on to the NBA Finals. So out of the East, first round, you'll see the Miami Heat beat the Atlanta Hawks to take on the Milwaukee Bucks, who beat the Chicago Bulls. And then the Bucks lost to the Heat, so the Eastern Conference Finals was the Heat as one team. On the other side, Cleveland beat the Raptors 4-1 in the first round to take on the Pistons, who beat the Pacers 4-1, and then the Cavaliers swept the Pistons 4-0, and then they moved on to face the Miami Heat, so LeBron taking on his former team, and the Cavs win that 4-2. So the NBA Finals for this 2016 season are the New Orleans Pelicans and the Cleveland Cavaliers, and it goes 5 games, as the Pelicans do get 1 game, but the Cavaliers come away with the NBA Finals by a score of 4-1. And the Cavaliers team was led by their Finals MVP, Kevin Love. In 5 games in the Finals, he had 34.8 minutes, a 19.6 points per game, which is basically 20 points per game, and he had 15 rebounds per game, as well as 3 steals and basically 1 block. So a very, very good Finals performance from Kevin Love. Now let's move on to the retirements, and some big names have retired. Guys like Kevin Garnett retired, Paul Pierce, Vince Carter, Steve Nash, Richard Jefferson, Manu Ginobili, Jermaine O'Neal, Andre Miller, Ray Allen, Jason Terry. Notably, Kobe Bryant and Tim Duncan did not retire, so they are going to be returning for this next season. And also, 2 coaches retired, one of them being Dwayne Casey of the Toronto Raptors, and the other one being our head coach, Quinn Snyder. He retired. So after this season, we have to find a new head coach, and I do not have footage of that, but we did go out and we got Steve Nash as our head coach. So, Steve Nash, he had some good ratings. I thought he'd be a good acquisition, and I picked up Steve Nash to be our head coach. And now let's move things over to one of the most exciting parts of the offseason, and that's the NBA Draft. So, here you'll see on your screen you've got the lottery odds, which is the chance to get the first overall pick, as I'm pretty sure all of you know. So the top 6 odds are, number 1 are the Raptors, who had the Nuggets pick, and as you know, the Nuggets are the worst record in the NBA. So the Raptors, via that Nuggets pick, have a 25% chance to get that first overall pick. The Jazz, which is us, have a 19.9% chance. Then the Celtics, the Nets pick they got in, I believe, the Kevin Garnett trade, is a 15.6%. Then the 76ers are 4th with a 11.9%. Magic 5th with a 8.8%. And then the Nuggets have a 6.3% chance through a pick they got from the New York Knicks. So, heading into the NBA Draft Lottery, those are the odds. Now, of course, you're going to expect that probably one of the top 3 teams are going to get it, like the Raptors, the Jazz, or the Celtics. But going into the draft lottery and then the selection, you are going to realize that that is not how it ended up, as the Toronto Raptors did not get the first overall pick, and neither did we, and neither did the Celtics, and neither did the 76ers, and neither did the Magic. So the first overall pick went to the team that had a 6.3% chance, and that's the Denver Nuggets. Now keep in mind, they did have the best chance with their pick, but their pick was owned by the Raptors. So the Nuggets, who had the worst, the 6th, out of the teams that listed they had the worst, they had the 6th best chance to get the first overall pick, and they got it with that New York Knicks pick. 6.3 chance they get the first overall pick, and then the Raptors, they get the second overall with a 25% chance. I saw that and I was like, hey, maybe I'm getting the 3rd, or they count it down from 15th or whatever, 14th down to 1. So I saw this beforehand, but I did not get the 3rd. The 3rd went to the 76ers. Then the 4th went to us. So we had the 2nd best chance for the first overall pick, and we did not get a top 3 pick. We got the 4th. So that's where we're picking. And then the 5th pick is going to be the Boston Celtics, who had the 3rd best chance for the first pick. So I'm sure they're not really complaining. I'm not really complaining either. It's still a top 4 pick, but it would have been nice to have that 1 or 2 and possibly get Ben Simmons, but we did not get that, especially since we pretty much tanked that season, and it would have been nice to have Ben Simmons. But heading into the draft, the top 5 picks, number 1, to the Denver Nuggets, they did not take Ben Simmons first overall. They took DRAGAN, Bender, a power forward out of Bosnia. So a surprising pick there. I saw that and I was like, okay, whatever, Nuggets. And then the Raptors, who were I believe, they were a playoff team. I'm pretty sure, or they were like just missed the playoffs. Like they were like an 8 or 9 seed or something like that. And they got Ben Simmons. So they were like either on the verge or they made the playoffs, and they got Ben Simmons on that 2nd overall pick. And then the 3rd overall pick to the Philadelphia 76ers is JAYLEN Brown, small forward out of Cal. And then the 4th pick was us, the Utah Jazz, and we took a Turkish shooting guard in Furkan Korkmaz. Is it Furkan Korkmaz? Furkan Korkmaz? I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it's Furkan Korkmaz. I think that's how you say it. We drafted him 4th overall. I'm happy with that pick. I wanted to get a shooting guard type player since I figured we were pretty much stacked on the big men with Gobert and Favors and Lyles merging last year. So I think we're pretty set there, and I wanted to get a shooting guard / small forward type player because, like I said, not really sure what I'm going to do with Gordon Hayward. I wanted to trade Rodney Hood. So we went out and got Korkmaz, the Turkish shooting guard. And then the 5th pick was to the Celtics. They took a center named Labissiere, something like that. And then later on in the 1st round, we got a trade offer from the Los Angeles Clippers. They would give up their late 1st round pick, which is 26th overall, for Joe Ingles, who, well, is like a 71 overall small forward. So I figured, hey, why not try to get a guy who's going to improve upon that 71, a young guy who we could, groom to be better than that. So I went out, accepted that trade, and we picked Taurean, is I think how you say it, Taurean Prince, a small forward out of Baylor. So he's the 26th overall pick. And then remember, we traded Trevor Booker for Steve Novak and the Thunder's 1st round picks. That was 29th overall. And we got Malik Newman from that, who is a point guard out of Mississippi State. So that's 29th overall. And then in the 2nd round, we had 2 picks. But the 1st pick we got was ours, which was the 2nd overall pick of the 2nd round, so the 32nd pick in the draft, and that we got Marcus Lee. So Marcus Lee, power forward out of Kentucky. He's the 2nd pick of the 2nd round, 32nd overall, like I said. We also had another pick. Our last pick of the draft was I believe it's Andres is his first name, or Andra Brima. I know his name is Brima. He's the center from UConn. I did not sign him, however, as here you'll see that we signed Korkmaz, we signed Prince, we signed Malik Newman, we signed Marcus Lee, but we did not offer Brima a contract. And now let's move things over to the free agency side of things, another very exciting part of the offseason. And we had a bunch of team and player options, or a bunch of team options, as we had Rudy Gobert, Rodney Hood, Trey Burke, Dante Exum, Jeff Withey, and Chris Johnson all had team options, and I decided to give Gobert, Hood, Burke, Exum all their player options, so they're going to stay around, but like I said, I pretty much gave that to Hood so I can get some value out of it by trading him, so that expect a Rodney Hood trade later in the episode. And then we did not give the player option or the team options to Jeff Withey and Chris Johnson because, well, they didn't play a role at all. I don't want them on the team. I want to build my bench how I want it to be, and Withey and Johnson are not a part of that future. So they are going into free agency, and then also guys who we signed to one-year deals or just guys who we didn't want to re-sign. Larry Sanders, Jeff Withey, Pierre Jackson, Steve Novak, and Chris Johnson are all people we had who are now going to be entering free agency. Larry Sanders would have been a guy interested in re-sign, but he wants a ridiculously big contract, and teams were offering him like $22 million for like 2 years or something like that. I just wasn't looking to give Larry Sanders a contract like that, so you'll see we pretty much went on and got a poor man Larry Sanders. So, the first guy in free agency that we went out and signed was Terrence Ross, the former Toronto Raptor. I felt like one of my big goals heading into free agency was to make this team more athletic, better at shooting, so we can get the fast break going, which is a lot. I like to have a fast team we can run down the court with, run in transition, run the fast break, and just be able to run past people and keep up with people. And I also like to have people who can drive to the rim, dunk it down, lay it in. I also like to have people who can shoot, because we didn't have too many shooters last year. which I felt like a lot of times our bench would come in and we didn't have any really shooters. So Terrence Ross pretty much fits that mold. He can dunk, he can shoot, he can drive. I like him. So T. Ross is now a member of the Utah Jazz. He accepted his offer. We gave him 2 years, $4.85 million. He's a 73 overall small forward / shooting guard. And then we also offered a contract to DeMar DeRozan. He's a 83 overall shooting guard from the Toronto Raptors, obviously. And like I said, I wanted to, like I mentioned in the draft, I felt like we had a pretty stacked big man core. And obviously, we needed to replace Larry Sanders, but I felt like we had a pretty good stacked big man core with Favors and Gobert. I needed to improve our backcourt, so I wanted to get DeMar DeRozan. We offered him a 3-year, $14.15 million deal, but he decided not to sign with us, as he... We'll mention that after I talk about the next day one offer we did, and that is we offered Bismack Biyombo a deal. He's a 73 overall center who, like I said, he's kind of like a poor man's Larry Sanders, a defensive-based center. He can rebound, he can block. Really, Bismack Biyombo just blocks, and blocks. So, Bismack Biyombo, we offered him a 2-year, $5.15 million deal, and that is a pretty good contract considering Larry Sanders wanted like a 2-year, like $24 million deal. So that's not exactly what we wanted to give him. So we got a poor man's Larry Sanders and Bismack Biyombo. So at the end of day one, Terrence Ross signed with us. Bismack Biyombo signed with us. But I believe it was Terrence Ross only signed with us after day one. And then DeMar DeRozan did not. He decided to go other ways. He went to sign with the Memphis Grizzlies. So DeMar DeRozan goes to a team that can't shoot threes. He can't shoot threes, and he is now a member of a team that can't shoot threes. I guess you could say it fits in, even though they need a three-point shooter. But DeMar DeRozan is now a member of the Memphis Grizzlies. And then the only other free agent offer we gave was we went out and we signed Gerald Green. Like I said, I wanted to improve that backcourt. I felt like we're gonna have a lot of shooting guards / small forward type players on this team. But like I said, we are gonna be trading away Rodney Hood, so that's gonna open up some space. But I feel like we still have more than enough room to give minutes around to everybody. So Gerald Green, shooting guard, 75 overall, very quick player, very athletic player. He can still shoot too. So Gerald Green is definitely going to be an exciting person to have coming off the bench. I'm planning on having him as my 6th man, and then Korkmaz as my 7th man as of right now. But like I said, Hayward could be traded, so I believe Korkmaz or Gerald Green or somebody can move their way into the starting lineup eventually. And now before we get to that Rodney Hood trade, let's go over the Summer League. So the Summer League is interested in this game. I have never done an off-season in this game before, so I found the Summer League quite interesting, how you can just give guys like a Summer League contract where they can play with your team, see how they do, and if you kind of want to sign them, you can go ahead and sign them in the regular season. And there's a couple guys who I was pretty impressed with, a couple guys I was pretty disappointed with, who I figured maybe sometime at this point we're going to have to go ahead and sign this guy. And one of those is, well, one of the guys who impressed me was Trey Lyles, who we have under control. He led the team in points per game, 13 points per game, 7 rebounds per game. He even had 3 assists per game as a power forward. And then Tomas Pleiss, whatever his name is, the big 7'3", 7'4", whatever how tall he is, center who we had. He really impressed me with those stats he put up in the Summer League. Now, I know it is the Summer League, so he's playing against other bench role players, basically, but still impressive. 12 points per game, 7 rebounds, 2 assists per game. I found that very good, and maybe at some point in the season, maybe if Marcus Lee isn't really what we want, and we can release him and sign Pleiss, because Pleiss played pretty well in those few minutes he had last year, so possibly could bring him back, because I did end up releasing him to make room in free agency. But like I said, he impressed me in Summer League, and at some point in the season, we could possibly bring him back. Korkmaz had 11 points with 6 rebounds. Malik Newman had 7.5 points per game with 1 assist. So definitely assist numbers are not really where I want them to be, but who knows where they had the coach's game plan or the rotations. So they could have had him as like a guy who just comes off the bench as like a shooting guard or something. So that could have been why his assist numbers were so low. But then Shane Larkin really showed that he I guess, is better. He was just performing better than Dante Exum in the Summer League. He had 7 points per game with 3 rebounds and 6 assists per game as the starting point guard, because they made him the starter, and then put Dante Exum, I guess, coming off the bench as the second point guard, and he was only getting 5.5, so 6 points per game, and 4 assists per game. So Dante Exum didn't really impress me too much there with those stats, but I mean, Shane Larkins aren't too impressive, but they're definitely better than Dante Exum. So Shane Larkin was a guy we just had on a Summer League deal, so possibly could sign him or something. Maybe if Malik Newman isn't where we want him to be, or maybe if I don't think he's going to play too much, considering he'll be our third point guard, but possibly at one point this season, if somebody gets hurt, we could possibly go ahead and sign Shane Larkin. And now to the trade I keep hyping up that is not even really a big trade, it's just kind of dumping him off for space, and that's Rodney Hood. We're going to dump him off the Milwaukee Bucks, who for some reason, not really sure why, I don't think I traded this pick to them. I'm pretty sure that they must have already had it for a previous trade. They had the 2018 first-round picks, which is not this upcoming year, it's the year after this year's Season 3's first-round pick of ours, the Utah Jazz. So we're getting Rodney Hood to the Milwaukee Bucks. We're getting our 2018 first-round pick back. I mean, it's not exactly a huge deal. I just wanted to kind of dump him off the roster because we have a lot of shooting guard small forward types, and he's the one I wanted the least on our team. So I got rid of him. And we have one last thing to go over before we wrap up this video, which will be the off-season video, and then we'll head into next season in next video, which will be episode 8 of the Jazz. But that one last thing to wrap up is a pretty important thing, and that is we are rebranding the Jazz. That is right. I mentioned this in a couple comments in earlier episodes when people recommended that I should relocate the Jazz, and one of the main reasons, well, not one of the main reasons, but one of the cool things that I thought I could do with the Jazz was that, well, I liked what the Jazz had to build with. When I was picking the team, when I was picking what team I wanted to do this MyLeague with, but I wasn't too much of a fan of their jerseys. And, well, 2K16 has one of the coolest features that I have ever seen in a video game, and that is the fact that you can just relocate or rebrand anytime you want. And I think that is absolutely awesome. So I took advantage of that, and we are rebranding the Jazz. Now, it actually took me a while to rebrand the Jazz because I didn't just want to just make it like half-ass type thing and make it just like a stupid rebrand. I wanted to make sure it was cool. It kind of made like a classic feel, but also like a modern feel. And the Jazz have had a lot of different kind of jerseys through the years. When I was growing up watching well, not really, I didn't watch basketball too much growing up, but when I was growing up, what I remember most from the Jazz is when they had Darren Williams and Carlos Boozer and Andre Kirilenko. And that was the team, and they had like those blue and white and like light blue, like that sky blue jerseys. And I thought those were pretty good looking, but that's not really the direction I wanted to go in. I also remember when I was like really young, like early 2000s, they had the kind of like the purple mountain on their jersey where it said Jazz and then it had the mountain on it. So there was like the white and it was purple, and it kind of had like a tad of like a not really sure what, like a, I guess, green, sort of? But you guys know what I'm talking about. It'll be on the screen, back when, like, Karl Malone and John Stockton were there. And then, like, early on in their careers, they had the, like, the purple. Like that, like the purple, yellow, and green, which was really what I wanted to go for. That purple, yellow, and green. Like, the away jerseys are purple, and they've got, like, yellow and green stripes. And then the homes are white with like purple and yellow and green mixed in there. And that was really what I wanted to go for with these throwbacks and with this rebrand, but kind of make it a more modern look to it, because I feel like a lot of people look at those jerseys and they think like, oh, Pistol Pete. And that's what they think, but I want it to be like a more modern version of the Pistol Pete era, you could say. So this is what I came up with. It kind of looks the same. It's kind of got the same concept. I went into Photoshop and kind of messed around with the colors in the Jazz's logo and everything. I spent a decent amount of time making these, and I think they came out pretty well. I like how they came out with. I showed this to a few of my friends. They like how it came out. and I'm liking it. So this is what we're going with, the Utah Jazz rebrand. We've got the white homes with the purple and yellow trim down the pants and everything like that, with the purple numbers and the purple Jazz across. And then the roads, we've got the purple jerseys with the green numbers and the yellow and green trim. And I think it looks pretty snazzy. I think the away jerseys look really good. If you ask me, they're pretty good jerseys, and this is what we're going to be rolling with in future seasons. So, starting this season, this is what we're going to be wearing. And that's going to wrap things up here for this off-season video. So, I've been your host, Jerseyborn, and I'm saying goodbye.
Hey, hey, my. Rock and roll can never die. There's more to the picture